Hey everybody, happy holidays. I hope that you are having a great lead up to what is going to be an awesome Christmas. That's what I hope. Today, I plan on this being our last episode of the year. I know it's a bummer, I know, but unless something absolutely insane or crazy happens, crazy, insane, or insane crazy. Anyway, hopefully nothing crazy is going to happen. If not, this is going to be my last Cooper Stuff episode for the rest of the year because I'm going to take some time off. So I hope you are ready for a great Christmas. Today we're going to take a look back over the last year, talk about some of the things that have happened and where we are ending up and where we're going to go. I hope you enjoy it. Peace. Let's watch some Cooper Stuff. Cooper Stuff! What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cooper Stuff. All right, last episode of the year. Don't get too sad. Do not get too sad, all right? Let's talk about a couple of things that have happened over the last year. Let's talk about why Cooper Stuff started. A lot of you already know this. Cooper Stuff started, and believe me, I did not think that Cooper Stuff would become what it's become. And I know there are some people that are super happy about that, and there are some people that maybe are not super happy about that. When I first started Cooper Stuff, here was the idea. I noticed all these culture shifts happening, the philosophies of the day that we talked about every week. You guys are aware of those things too. I began noticing it, 2012-ish maybe? Began noticing how people mean different things when they say certain kinds of words, seeing how the church is changing what we think about stuff, and that sometimes there'd be preachers or pastors or church leaders, influencers, who would use these words, and me, being a Christian since I was a kid, being a churchgoer since I was a kid, I would be like, what? Say that in my good ear? What are you trying to say exactly? I began noticing it. I wanted to do Cooper Stuff, as most of you probably know, because of this. There aren't a lot of celebrities that talk about these things. And when I say celebrities, I'm using that term extremely loosely. I don't view myself as a celebrity, but you get the point. The point is that in the secular world, in the politics world, in what I would call a lot of the more the left, right, especially in the hard left, what you have is this. You have, of course, politicians. You have intelligentsia. You have academia. But you also have what you might want to call your celebrity world. That would be your boots on the ground folks. That is going to be people like famous people like in Hollywood who basically, when it's time for an election or when something happens, they want to chime in and say what they think about a thing in culture. What you see basically is a Hollywood class and an influencer class and the woke running to Twitter or to Facebook or whatever to make their voices known. It's easy to do that, in my opinion, when you are on the left politically in this country, or even on the left in terms of your views on religion and things like that. Atheism or agnosticism, secularism, humanism, all that, or if you're just woke. It's easier to do that because it is not going to cost you your job. In fact, you're going to get woke cookies. Now, me, myself, I don't really want woke cookies. Why? I have a shirt that says it. Here, take a look. You see what I'm saying? This is what I want. This is goals right here. No, we don't want woke cookies. This shirt is available. Should be available as of today. Anyway, should be today. So go to johnlcooper.com and I'll put a code up on the screen. You can use this code for, I believe, 20% off. So check that out. But the point is that there are a lot of celebrities that will come on and they will basically do a normal person version of leftward authoritarianism or the woke movement or secularism or atheism, whatever it may be. A lot of times it's just politically motivated. We're going to talk about that politically motivated thing in 1 second. But there aren't a lot of those kind of people in Christianity. That's why Cooper Stuff. I just thought, all right, let's start Cooper Stuff. Because we do on Christianity and on conservative Christianity and traditional thinking in terms of the historic faith, orthodoxy. There are lots of people that talk about this stuff, just not a lot in the what we would call the Christian celebrity world. That would be the boots on the ground folks. So I see myself as that version of what you may see of somebody in Hollywood that is espousing leftward ideas. Well, then I will espouse Christian ideas and do them in a way that normal people can understand. That was just the idea of this. I never saw Cooper's stuff as being something divisive, something that was going to make people really mad, something that was going to be like John's bringing a sword, and that was not my thinking. Little did I know the world that we were headed in. And so basically what we are in now is there are some people that are super thankful, and I've met you and I get your comments and you say, thank you so much for what you're doing, John. This is great. Not because John Cooper stuff is the smartest people on the planet, not because this is the most academic, but in some ways it might be more relatable than some of the things you listen to because this is not necessarily academic language and that sort of thing. And I'm so thrilled that this podcast helps you. On the other hand, I know people that frankly are not thrilled with Cooper stuff. Even people that like Skillet, people that still like me, they still support me, but they find that this podcast has become too fill in the blank. Maybe that's too political. Maybe that is too rude or too dogmatic or this or the other. We have all been on somewhat of a journey together. And when I say we, I don't mean just Cooper stuff fans. I mean we, meaning America and the world for the last couple of years. What was happening in the globe, in other words, these philosophies, postmodernism and all the various things that are happening in America, they're not just happening in America, they are happening across the globe. That's why when I wrote my book, as a lot of you know, I wrote most of the book overseas. I began writing it in America, but I did not begin writing in America. I had the idea of it while being in America. When I went overseas, I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening everywhere. This is not just an American phenomenon. The philosophical shifts about truth and what truth is, that's happening everywhere. And that's why I wrote the bulk of the book overseas, and then I finished it in America. So that is happening everywhere. So we're all in this together. Not just the philosophical shifts globally, but the pandemic. What happened with the pandemic is that this pandemic happened, and what it did was not necessarily change people's views on a great many things. A lot of what it did is it all of a sudden made people think about things they had never thought about before. You're seeing that in the American Academy, right? Even with K through 12. You're seeing all of a sudden a lot of parents were finding out what their kids were learning in school because for the first time their kids were home and their parents are like, what in the heck is this? I've never even heard of this before. And they have been being force-fed this in the public education system and even in a lot of the private school education system. And wait for it, I'm sorry, even in a lot of the Christian private school education. They are not necessarily being taught Christian worldview at all those Christian public, private institutions. I hope you know this. Well, a lot of parents found this out for the first time. And all of a sudden, we are all forced to make decisions. So what's happened with Cooper stuff isn't really any different than what happened with a lot of people that you watch Cooper stuff. Maybe it happened at your church. It happened because why? The pandemic happened, and all of a sudden you're told you may not go to church. You may not worship, locked down. And even after, 4 or 6 weeks, 8 weeks of lockdown last year in 2020, all of a sudden you still weren't allowed to go to church. And then people started going, wait a minute, what's going on with this? Right? You had some of the people saying, we're not going to lock down a single Sunday, and whatever. You had other people saying, hey, we don't know much about this disease yet. They've asked us to lock down for 2 weeks. Remember, I'm talking about like last March, okay? Let's lock down for 2 weeks. Let's give it a shot. And this happened. A lot of people know there's a kind of a famous sermon when John MacArthur came out because he's looked at as kind of a non-political type guy. As far as I know, I don't think of him as being on the front lines of political activism, right? He wouldn't be looked at as somebody like, I can't really think of anybody right now. Even somebody like Franklin Graham is a little bit more politically, I think, motivated. John MacArthur's typically not really been that guy, but all of a sudden John MacArthur is quote, standing up to tyranny. All of a sudden, for maybe the first time in probably a lot of our lives, I would put myself in this category for sure, as a churchgoer, all of a sudden I am faced with a decision. What role does the government play in my life? What role does the government play in the life of the church? This is happening up in Canada. There are pastors that are being put in prison as we speak because they were opening up their churches. You probably know this. It's well documented. All of a sudden, people that you have gone to church with for years, decades maybe, and you always thought you were on the same page. Well, all of a sudden, you're not on the same page anymore because you're having to deal with something that you've just never thought deeply about. I put myself in that category in a big way. So some of the stuff I talk about on Cooper stuff, they're not necessarily things that I have thought for 20 years. There are people out there that are talking about the stuff they thought for 20 years. I know I'm late to the game. I will admit that. I'm late to the game. I'm like a lot of you guys were like, well, I hadn't really thought a lot about that. I had my opinions, but it's not been like where the rubber hits the road. And so now all of a sudden we are all have to go back to our Bibles, and we're all coming out with our own with our own positions on these things, and all of a sudden we go and I'll say them on Cooper stuff, and it sounds like John has become hyper political. But in reality, something that I absolutely believe is that a lot of these things that we may call political are not actually political stances. They are founded, they are rooted, I should say, they are rooted in religious beliefs. All of your political philosophies are going to be rooted in religious beliefs. And I believe that that is something that the church has not done a good job of teaching on. I think that a lot of us had never thought deeply about those things really until the last few years. Maybe in the last 5 or 6 years. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you began thinking about them when Ferguson happened, and then all these various social justice things that happened from 2012 to 15 to 16, leading into the election between and 16 with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and all of a sudden this real war began to happen. In some ways, that's what Vodi Balcom's book Fault Lines is about. In some ways, a very good book, by the way. I think he states it very clearly. So all of a sudden, here we are, Cooper stuff. I look over the last year about where this has come from and why it is, and I don't like the fact that there have been people that have gotten mad at me, even friends of mine, people that I love deeply and respect deeply, that feel like this is a political position. I don't see it as a political position. I see it as, no, I have a religious foundation that I absolutely believe in, and I want to see Jesus become greater in my eyes, right? I want to value God more in 2022 than I did in 2021. And I want every area of my life to be surrendered to the Lord Jesus Christ. That will have a social justice implication. It will have a political implication, and it will have a civil realm implication. So last thing I'll say about this is that I know Christians who I love deeply, and they see politics as a non-issue. And so from where Cooper stuff started to where Cooper stuff is now, I do realize that Cooper stuff started as a, hey, politics are not an ultimate thing for me. I am very gracious when it comes to politics. I still think that I'm pretty gracious about politics, right? That's because politics as their own thing is not an ultimate thing to me. But from where it started, from saying, hey, there's lots of room here. Some people, some like mayo, some like mustard, not that big of a deal. You have seen that stance went out the window. That stance of mine went completely out the window. It's been a couple of years now, but it has been ramped up because now we're in a place where a lot of Christians that do say, John, politics aren't an ultimate thing. I don't want to get involved. Those things don't really matter. A lot of those people still have very strong beliefs on certain things that some people would call political beliefs. Let me give you an example. It's the Christian that says, I don't want to get involved in politics. That's just not my thing. But I have a real problem. This is the same person. They say, don't want to get involved in politics, but I have a real problem with Christians that won't acknowledge that the government needs to give more funds to single moms who can't afford health care. Bam, you are now into a political policy discussion. I realize that you might think, yeah, but that's because that's something to do with ethics. All politics is to do with ethics, and that is kind of my stance. It's sort of like Christians that have a really, really hard, and I would argue correct stance on abortion. They would say, I don't want to get involved in politics. Christians don't need to be yelling about all this stuff. That's not what the kingdom is about. It's about the gospel. But they will get completely hard on the issue of abortion, and they will fight it in a political realm. Well, my view on that is, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And I do believe that you are fighting that in a political realm, not because it's just like rabid politics. You're fighting it in a political realm because you believe in the ethic, which is the morality. You believe in the biblical morality that every single life is created by God. So therefore, you believe that no one has the right to infringe upon the rights of that child that unborn child. I agree with you, but it is inconsistent for those people, in my view. It's inconsistent to believe it for abortion, but then say, yeah, but all the other things are just politics. And so that's where we have come with in Cooper stuff. I think it's inconsistent to hold that position on abortion or whatever. Pick a subject. Traditional marriage or yada yada. Well, I'm holding that on that, but all the other stuff doesn't really matter. I just don't see it like that anymore. I can have grace for people that disagree with me on those issues, but we need to come out and clearly say what we believe. Why? Because I believe some of the reason we are in the problem we are in right now is because Christian leaders have tried too hard to be so loving and so empathetic that they just no longer say what is true. Or else, if they say what is true, it is candy coated with so many caveats, right? They have put so much, sugar. They put so much sugar on the pill, right, to make it so easy and so tasty for people to swallow the pill that people don't even really know what pill they're taking anymore. That's where I'm getting at. I don't want to be rude to people. I don't want to be mean to people. I don't even want to be divisive. I have lots of friends that disagree with me on these things, and I'm so gracious towards them. But it leading us to a position to not say anything that we believe because it's mean, or to caveat it to such a degree that we never ever draw a distinct line to say, hey, I believe this is what Jesus demands on this issue. I am willing to be gracious towards you if you disagree. I still love you, but I think you're wrong. This is what I believe the Word of God says. We are not doing people favors by not doing that. That's why Cooper stuff has become what it's become. And even though I am sad to see some people go or some people get mad, yes, there are people that scour through every one of my podcasts to try to get me in trouble and say, John said this, because it creates drama and it makes money for their platforms and whatnot. Yeah, I don't love the fact that there are people that get mad, but I believe with all of my heart, hear me when I say it, I believe with all of my heart that the stakes are too high to not do that. Because it would be easier for me to say, hey, I'm not going to touch those subjects. I'll just be kind of an encouragement to people every week, encourage you to live for Jesus, but never bring a sword, a sword, if this is what the Bible says. I'll never bring a sword because that could really hurt my brand, and that's not what I'm about. I just want to make people feel good and be encouraged in your faith. I just think the stakes are too high. We are losing way too many Christians falling out of the Christian faith because we aren't willing to lay it on the line. That's why we're here. That is where Cooper stuff has gone. It's difficult, but that's what it is. Some of the things we talked about this week, I want to talk about today, is I think of how did we get here? What did we talk about over the last year? I want to tell you this. One of the things I talked about that was one of my bigger episodes was called Cancel Christianity. It was on cancel culture. I remember when that came out, there were still a lot of people that are saying there's no such thing as cancel culture. That's one of the big arguments. There isn't even such thing. It's just, I've heard it in the mainstream, especially on the left, they call it accountability culture. So they say, no, we're not canceling you. We're holding you accountable. And I think about that in the fact that there were a lot of people, even in the Christian market. I don't know if you noticed, but there are Christian celebrities or influencers like me in the Christian market. Earlier, I said there really aren't a lot of people in this space. Let me rewind, please. I was wrong. There are people in this space. They're just not on the conservative side. I said it. Yeah, talk about drawing a sword. Get out the Twitter. There are people in this space. They just tend to be left. And even if they are not left on what we would call fundamentals of the faith, meaning even if they still do believe that Jesus Christ is 100% man and 100% God, that he is the Son of God, that he died on a cross, that he rose from the dead, that he was a sacrificial atonement for our sins, and he is the only way to heaven, and all of that, all right? Even if they are traditional in those things, they have become very left on social issues. We all know that. And unless I'm absolutely crazy, what I believe is once you drift left on social issues, you end up drifting left on theology, because the social issues themselves, in my view, are really rooted in humanism. That is my opinion. That's going to make some of those influencers really upset. To me, their ideas are more humanistic. They are more like, we need to help people, and so we need to do A, B, C, and D. Admit your privilege, admit your male privilege, admit your white privilege, admit your tall person privilege, admit your this, and then we're going to socially construct all these blah, blah, blah. In the end, I don't really think those things actually do what they say that they do. I believe that that is man trying to make great outcomes for people, but they don't seem to work. However, if we institute what the Bible says is going to help create great outcomes for people, and if you say those things, you are deemed a little bit mean, right? In other words, you can talk about social justice and this, and I would say, yeah, okay, I agree. Let's do something. Can we talk about creating a culture? Can we talk about creating a culture where we once again say there needs to be a father in the home? Can we create a culture where we can promote fathers to do what fathers are supposed to, not have sex outside of marriage, not have all these single moms having to raise their kids because dads never stepped up, never did what they were supposed to do, never became actual fathers. They may have fathered a son, they may have sired a son, but they weren't actually a dad. They weren't in the home. Can we talk about those things? But you're not allowed to talk about those things. Why? Because they make you seem like you are ignoring the social justice problems. Now, in my view, we're looking at humanism versus, in my view, biblical ethics, okay? So the point is there are people in this space and as Christian influencers and Christian more celebrities, if you want to call us that, okay? Boots on the ground people. There are people like me. There's just not a lot that are on what I would consider to be the historic Orthodox side. That's just my opinion. Please, nobody get mad at me. So when I talk about cancel Christianity and the fact that there are things that we are going to be canceled over, we already have been. I was really surprised to find out that some of those other Christian influencers did not have my back. And in fact, were against what I was saying because they believe that what I'm saying is just right-wing talk. And I don't think that they're right-wing talk. So I say, why don't we take account of how things are going since I did that episode? That was back in I can't remember. Was that like April? I don't remember. March? Don't remember what it was. Whenever that was, how are things going? Do you guys feel like cancel culture is a lie? Do you feel like cancel culture really isn't that big of a deal and it's just like a right-wing conspiracy? Do you think that things are getting more open for Christians to talk about our faith? Or do you feel like it's getting a little bit less open for us to talk about our faith? All that cancel culture is, you guys, I'm just going to mention this and we'll move on. All that cancel culture is this. It is a war between, I would say, worldviews, okay? In other words, I believe in free speech. I believe in your right to say something that I disagree with. I even believe in your right to say something that offends me, and I will fight for that right. I'm into that. Let's have a marketplace of ideas and let's argue about it. Let's talk about, because I believe the truth of the Word of God is going to win. Not just because it wins intellectually, but it wins because practically you put it to the test, you do A, B, and C, and then you will be blessed because it's what the Bible says. Let's let the humanists say whatever they want to say. Let's put their stuff to the test and let's see how it's going. For instance, here's a good example of what's happened over the last year since Cooper stuff has been gone. We're taking inventory. Let's look at the receipts. The humanists said we need to, A, defund the police. Police are racist. Police actually need to be less in urban areas and yada, yada, yada. How's that working out? How's that working out? Excuse me. We have the receipts, do we not? There's now 12 cities in America with the worst murder rates in the history of America. In the history of this country, the highest murder rates in 12 of these cities. I've just read that this week. Amazing. Crime was up 29%. I've said it already in Cooper stuff, almost 30%. Nearly 30% higher in not just crime, in murder. I'm talking about like murder, rape, battery, all right? Like violent crime is up 30% year to year from 2019 to 2020. In other words, the humanists had an idea. It was called defund the police. Police are bad. Police are racist. They do all this bad stuff. And because of their race, we know they're racist because they are delivering different outcomes for groups of people, right? And so we know it's racist and we got to end it. Well, let's look at the receipts. How has it gone? That's the kind of free open marketplace I want in ideas. We have the Christian view that actually law is good because you cannot have true justice without just laws. That's how you know what justice is. Justice is nothing but an application of a law. So we need to make sure that laws are right and moral and ethic according to the Word of God so that we may mete out justice. Mete out, M-E-T-E. We can mete out justice based on godly law. Well, humanism says, no, that's not the kind of law that we want. We want justice, but not with your kind of laws. We want justice by taking away cops because people don't really do bad stuff, and that gives us the sads. How's it working? I want that open market space because the Word of God is going to win. It's just going to. You put it into practice, it's going to win. We also know that because all you have to do is look at the disparities of income and economics, education, yada, yada, two-parent homes and versus single-parent homes. You will see right off the bat that the people who grow up in a two-parent home, for instance, does not matter where you come from, doesn't matter what color your skin is, what kind of culture you came from, or even what class. In other words, you could have been from the poorest class, the poorest neighborhood, the worst school, but if you had two parents as opposed to one parent, you are in the group of people that become successful in America. That's just social science statistics. You cannot argue with the statistics. In the end, this single factor of the color of your skin and all these other, it never proves itself to be accurate. In my understanding of the social science statistics is that really what it comes down to, the number one factor is two-parent homes. Well, we already know that as Christians. So let's have an open marketplace where we get to say what we believe. The humanists can say what they believe. I support free speech. I support your right to do that. However, having said that, going back to what cancel culture is, I will agree with you. There are some things that I am not willing to tolerate. I will not tolerate an open space to promote pedophilia, okay? I don't think that you should be allowed to say that, or certainly to do that, but even to promote it. If I had my way, and I know this is very non-libertarian of me, if I had my way, I would ban all pornography, all just licentious sex type stuff. And people say, John, I thought you were a free speech guy. I am a free speech guy, but guess what? There are things that I think should absolutely not be tolerated. Pornography is one of those things. All that cancel culture is somebody with the opposite worldview of me saying what I just said. All that they're saying is they want an open market space of ideas, but there are things that they are not willing to tolerate. Well, I said the same thing. I think we shouldn't tolerate pedophilia or people that promote it or even talk about it. I think they should be kicked off of Twitter, personally. I do not support pornography, so on and so forth. Well, the people that have an opposite worldview of me, they say, John, I agree with you, but it's not the pornography that they want to end. It's people who speak violent things. And when they say violent things, they don't just mean physical violence. They mean violent things that give people the sads. What is the number one thing that gives people the sads in America in terms of violent speech that is not actual violence, but it is speech that kills? It's Christianity. We all know that by now. If you don't know that by now, you haven't been paying attention. At the very root of the speech that these people do not like, that they are not willing to tolerate, that they want to cancel you for saying, what is at the foundation of that? It's not America. It's actually Christian values. That is what they want to destroy. So yes, cancel culture is real, but all that it really is a clash of worldviews. And it is a traditional worldview that was built on Judeo-Christian values. And it is a new atheistic worldview, humanistic worldview that says that the most important thing in the world, the most freeing, liberating thing in the whole world is for each individual to be their authentic self. And you have to go into your own heart to find your authentic self. And if anybody says anything that does not affirm who your authentic self is, well, then those people need to be shut down because they are doing me harm. You understand? So if I go down into my inner self and I say, you know what? I just got to be honest. I identify as a dog. I don't think I'm a human. I identify as a dog now. And I need to do that. And that is me being my authentic self. And anybody that says, actually, John, you're actually not a dog, if anybody comes and says that to me, why are you attacking me? Why are you giving me the sad? Why are you harming me? You are trying to imprison me into your ideas of what the world should be. And imprisonment is bad. You are trying to keep me a slave to your ideas, but you can't possibly know my truth. So you need to be canceled. You need to be not just canceled, you need to be blotted out because your ideas are causing harm and violence to people. You are making me not safe because safety is just living out what is on my inside and my truest, most authentic self. So how's cancel culture? I guess I would ask those Christian influencers that came at me and said I was being crazy about cancel culture. I would say, how do you think it's going? Do you see yet that they are coming after you too? They're not just coming after traditional Christians. They're coming after you too. You either will eventually be gone after and you will finally end up having to take a stand with us in the 11th hour, or you will have to give in on historic Christian beliefs, on historic Christian held traditional Bible orthodox that people believe for 2,000 years, you'll just, or longer, by the way, you will have to give in on those things. The time is coming, you will have to take a stand or you will have to soften. How's it going? How's it going for Christians? Is it getting better or for worse? Having said that, another thing that I said in that episode that some people didn't agree with, and I even said, hey, this is just my thoughts for now. I don't mind if people disagree. It's my thoughts for now. My thought for now is, you know what? We're in a different time than we were 5 years ago, 3 years ago. I wonder if we are at a time, being that people that believe historical Orthodox Christian beliefs, being that we are going to be kicked out of the sphere, slowly but surely, we are being kicked out as we speak. You will be denied access or as much access. Even if you have access, you'll have less access to the marketplace of ideas than you did. And there are people that are like, John's going crazy. No, that is a fact. We saw that came out on some of the social media platforms. I'm sure you've seen that within the last 8-9 weeks. We began to see reports that happen of how social media, big tech, began clamping down on certain sorts of either platforms or things that were said. They would limit the algorithms so that Cooper stuff couldn't reach as many people as it was reaching then. And they believe they are doing that. They might call it because they're trying to be equitable or this, but that's not what's going on. It's clear now because we all have the receipts. It's out there. Everybody knows it. It's clear now what they saw was that these things that somebody like, I don't know, Cooper stuff or whoever, or even on the political right, like Ben Shapiro or the Daily Wire, not that that's coming from a Christian perspective, but it's a conservative perspective, to not promote those things, to not let the algorithms do what the algorithms used to do, because big tech feels like if they are doing that, then they basically are helping spread information that hurts people, that causes people harm, that gives people the sads, that is viewed as immoral. And now big tech is going to be complicit in doing immoral things by saying that Cooper stuff episode was going good, and so the algorithms put it on other people's pages, and or YouTube. When you watch a video on YouTube and like you're watching Skillet's new song "Surviving the Game," which is sick. Go watch it. Tell your friends about it. As you know. After Cooper stuff So after Skillet Surviving the Game is over, it automatically will play another video. The algorithms play, maybe it's going to play Shinedown or Hailstorm or whatever it's going to play. It's going to play because it gives you more of the kind of thing that you are watching. Well, all of a sudden what they do is they do not allow the next thing to be, for instance, Cooper stuff or Daily Wire or a Christian preacher or a whatever. They don't allow that to happen. So they are basically not kicking you off the platform. You still have access. What are you complaining about? It's just not as much access as you had. Because of that, by prohibiting the access, well, the access goes to someone else. So it is actually the opposite of equitable. It is actually the opposite of a free marketplace. It is giving benefit to other things that are more in line with the narrative, capital T, capital N, the narrative of the woke, the narrative of the secularist agenda, the narrative of leftward authoritarianism, the narrative of people who want to cancel ideas like Christianity. That is the proof. So what I'm getting at is this. Is it more time? I said this last year. Is it time for Christians and people of like-mindedness, whether you're a Christian or not, maybe you just have ideas of conservative traditional America, which I do believe are largely rooted in the Christian faith, okay? But maybe you say, well, I'm not really religious, but I do believe in those traditional values of conservatism and yada, yada. Is it time for us to begin voting by giving our money to conservative platforms, to Christian platform, Christian art, Christian culture, whatever? Some of the people really came after me and I don't mind if they came after me. I said it. They can come after me all they want to. But my feeling for them is, do you not notice that also your platform eventually, maybe not yet, you may think you're escaping the fire right now. You will not escape the fire. It's not like you're going. I waited through it and I got through it and now the marketplace is back open again. That's not in the cards. That is not the direction America is headed in. Is it possible for that to change? Yeah, I think it's possible if enough people get riled up, and then God, in His grace, begins to lead us down a different path, because the path we are on right now, no, that is not where we are headed now. Having said that, I said, I do know it's self-serving, by the way, but if you don't listen to Christian music, I would just say, why not? Somebody's going to be getting your money. I'm not, you know me, I'm not condemning you. I'm not saying you're a bad person if you don't. I hate the idea of saying, because you're a Christian, you should listen to the Christian music, but maybe it's time for us to begin to think of things like that. So I've changed some of my ways in the places that I buy stuff from. Dude, 4 years ago, if you had said, hey, buy from this company, they're Christian owned, I would have been like, I don't care. I need to see, are their products any good or not? We have a free marketplace. If their products are good, then I'll buy it. If I don't like to buy, I'm not going to buy it just because it's Christian. I still do feel like that, by the way. But I am a lot more open now to trying a conservative brand or a Christian-owned brand, even if it's a little bit more money. I go, I don't like that it's more money, but this might be how we have to do it for now. Because a lot of times if it's more money, it also means that it's made in America. So while I say this, it will be a great time for me to promote. I know it's self-serving. You don't have to listen to me, and I think you know me well enough to know that I'm not lying for the sake of a buck. But my company that I'm a part of, Hawk and Hatchet, we make, honestly, if you have the product, send a comment so people know that I'm not just making this up. The products are actually, they're the best. In other words, the products are not, we didn't skimp on anything. It is 100% all natural, 100% all made in America. It's actually made in Wisconsin. Yeah, my wife is very proud of Wisconsin. So right now she's going, hoo-hoo. She loves Wisconsin. She makes that noise. That wasn't my noise. That's hers. Point is, we make the awesomest products. But the truth is, they are a little bit more expensive. You can go somewhere and buy a candle for $8. Ours are made by hand. They're made all in it from products made in America, all natural products. It's a little bit more expensive. A lot of times, small businesses are like that because that's how they have to do their business. But also, you're supporting America, and we are living in a time where globalism is, in my view, something to be quite concerned about. I think we've made some bad decisions. I think we all can see the fruit of those bad decisions. So all this is to say, I'm not telling you have to go buy from Christian products. I'm saying that within the last year, that's something that I've said. Maybe we should begin to think of that. And a lot of you guys did that. You supported Skillet in the hugest way. And I appreciate that because Skillet is not canceled, but certainly Skillet does not have the access to the market, just telling you the honest truth, as we did 3 years ago. That's just the way that it is. I'm not a victim. I ain't complaining. That's just where we're at. Now we're going to move on. Other things that we have talked about. We have spent an inordinate amount of time talking about truth, absolute truth, and this, that, and the other. So current events, I'm sure you're aware. Jussie Smollett has been convicted 5 out of 6 counts. Jussie Smollett is the black gay actor that plays on Empire. I'm sure everybody knows this. He was attacked, allegedly, earlier this year in the middle of a snowstorm, and it was apparently was a racial attack, and they called him, the bad names. They called him bad names for the color of his skin and for his sexual orientation, and they hung a noose around his neck, and they beat him up in this big thing. Everybody has to know this right by now. It was a hate crime hoax, all right? So it wasn't real. Or as Chris Farley might say, that was a hoax. Anyway, it was a hoax. He's now been convicted. I wanted to say this because we talked about this stuff a lot over the last year. So we're taking inventory of the last year, and we have a perfect example. Can I read you something from my book? If you don't have my book yet, as I'm promoting all my stuff, go online, johnlcooper.com. You can get 20% off of everything on there, including my book. I want to read this to you. This is from chapter 2. I was basically discussing this. That the way that culture sees truth now is this. Our culture does not believe in absolute truth. And I share a story in here about my own life. It's kind of quite an embarrassing story. Basically, where I lied to one of my teachers when I had missed an appointment that I was supposed to be at. I ended up lying to them and saying basically that I had to do something else because my mom had died from cancer, okay? My mom did die from cancer, and I was going through a really difficult time. I probably forgot about the meeting because my brain was in a million different places, but I lied about it, all right? So I lied to them and said, oh, I was going to visit my mom's grave. It's this really embarrassing story I tell in my book. If you haven't read it, you need to go get my book, Awaken Alive to Truth. I use it as an example to basically say that the way that we see truth now is this, that even if something isn't true, it feels true. That is the best way to describe postmodernism and the everything that you see in life right now. So I'm talking about it like this. Let me read you what I wrote. This is on page 24 right here. Check it out. The versions of truth. So I say this in a way that I think that everybody can understand it, all right? In 2018, we watched history unfolding during the Brett Kavanaugh Senate confirmation hearings. Kavanaugh was up for a seat on the United States Supreme Court when Christine Blasey Ford made an earth-shattering sexual assault allegation against him. It allegedly occurred 26 years prior, and the accuser did not recall the date it happened, much less the year. She claimed the assault took place at a party with other people, though none of them recall it happening. And perhaps the assault happened, perhaps it didn't. For purposes of this discussion, it's actually irrelevant. What is relevant is that it was the first time I watched national leaders state we must believe, quote, her truth. I recall wondering why they were using such odd language. Before that moment, I had not realized the implications of language like her truth or his truth or my truth. I just thought I was getting old and I didn't understand young people talk. Wrong. The insinuation being made was that whether or not the assault literally happened, Blasey Ford's truth is a higher truth. Rather than appealing to facts, evidence, or a trial, her truth appeals to a greater sense of how women have historically been mistreated. So, as a woman who is inherently a victim of the patriarchy, and secondly, as an alleged victim of sexual abuse, she has access to a higher level of truth than a man. Still not following? It goes something like this. Women have been assaulted, harassed, and paid poorly in the workplace for generations. The men who have assaulted and harassed them have gotten away with it. Therefore, what she feels is paramount and justifies her claim to truth, just as I was justified in lying to my band director. It may not literally be true, but it feels true, particularly when memories are hazy. That's from my book. Why am I reading that right now? That is exactly what we're seeing in the Jussie Smollett trial. Why did Jussie Smollett create a hoax, a hate crime where he paid to, ironically, to black men from, I believe, Nigeria, I believe they're from, at 2 a.m. to come and beat him up. So they beat him up, and he paid them to do it so that he could go and say, we're living in a racist society. I was targeted and this and this and this. And he still is standing behind his story. Why is that? The reason this has happened is exactly what I talk about in my book. His point of view is this: I may not have actually been targeted by white people. I may not have actually been targeted by what he would call homophobic people, okay? I may have actually been targeted by MAGA people, as he calls it, but it feels true. In other words, it's true in another sense that stuff is happening. And that it's true that in general that is happening every day in the society. That's basically the truth that we live in. So I'm going to lie about something, but the greater truth is that this happens all around us every single day. This is the world we live in, and it's true because it feels true, not because it is literally true. Parents, this is the world that your kids are growing up in. This is the world that your kids are going to school in. It's the reason their minds don't understand what is true and false. They don't know what to do about it. It is our job in 2022. We have to do a better job of teaching our kids what truth means. And if you're a Christian, then you need to hear me out. We need to realize there are not huge sections of society, be it politics, be it culture studies, be it social science, be it ideas of parenting or ideas of healthcare, whatever those things are that might seem like social science issues or political issues, there is a religious root at the bottom of those issues. And all truth has to be looked at through the truth of Jesus Christ and his word. All of society, there can be no areas that we keep neutral. All right, that is, once again, I talk about the myth of neutrality. Well, this is a neutral area. I don't have to bring religion into this. I can just look at this area and say, Jussie Smollett's kind of right. He really was attacked for being black and for being gay and for not voting for Donald Trump or whatever. He really is being attacked for that, even if it didn't literally happen. It's just a neutral area. We don't have to bring the truth of the scriptures into everything. Yes, we do. And I believe that's why we are at the problem we are at now. We just decided, and as evangelical Christians, to not talk about A, B, C, and D because it's not a part of the gospel. When in reality, what we need to train our kids to do is this: the foundation of all truth is Christ. And every single thing that happens in your life, every sphere, every atom, everything has to be seen through the truth of Jesus Christ. He is the truth reality. The truth, I like to think of it, the truth / reality. That's who Jesus is. I want to end where we're at in society, talking about the pandemic, and then I'll be done. This is what I want to give you a story. How about this? Let's say that you're a school teacher, and you have all these kids coming to school, and all of the kids are. This is going to get dark, okay? But let's just say that all the kids are wearing these jackets that are actually bombs, okay? They are jackets. They have, dynamite strapped to it, and there's an off switch, but it's in the back, and it can only be turned off by you. You're the teacher. You're the only one that could turn this bomb off. Let's say that there were a certain amount of parents that sent a note and said, please turn the switch off on the jacket on my kid. I need this bomb off. And let's say you as a teacher say, okay, I'll go do that. But let's say there's a kid whose parents did not want you to turn the switch off, but you're looking at the switch, the timer's on, you go, oh my gosh, it's only 3 minutes left, and this jacket is going to go off, but the parents said no. What am I going to do about this? So you try to convince the parents, you don't understand, parent, your kid is wearing a jacket, it's going to explode, your kid is going to die. Well, let's say that the parent is like, I just don't believe you. I don't believe that there's a jacket. I don't believe there's a bomb. I don't think that my kid is in that danger. I just want you to leave my kid alone. So it comes down to this. You're the teacher. What are you going to do? What happens if this bomb ends up going off and this poor kid dies and you could have done something about it, but you didn't have the guts to do it, or you felt it's just not my place, I don't know what to do? Honestly, this is a really hard question. What would you do? What would I do? I don't know. It's hypothetical. Pretty difficult decision to make. I'm telling you this story because just this week, as you may have seen, there is a case in California where a teacher, it was a teacher or a nurse, I don't know, whoever it was at the school, gave the vaccine to a kid whose parents had not agreed to it. Now, before you start freaking out and saying that I'm conflating something, yeah, I'm being extreme for a reason. I'm being extreme for a reason to say this, that parent did not want the kid getting it. I saw her on the news. The parent has the vaccine. She's not an anti-vaxxer. She's like, I have the vaccine. And I took my kid to his doctor to say, should we get my kid the vaccine? The doctor said, no, you shouldn't, because her kid has asthma. And there are complications with this and this, as everybody knows, I'm not going to repeat them all a million times. Everybody knows the various complications. If you have asthma, then maybe that's just not something the kid needs to worry about right now. Why is that? Because in general, we all know, and I'm going to get hated by somebody for saying it, but we all know your kids are not at a great risk for dying from COVID. We know that by now. The reason I'm telling you this is because somebody at the school said, you know what? That kid is basically wearing a jacket with a countdown on it, with dynamite. This kid is literally putting his life at risk, at such a risk that even if I have to break the law, go against his parents' wishes, even if I have to do the unthinkable, even if I lose my job, it is worth doing, because this kid is in mortal danger of this disease. I'm telling you this because we Christians, we need to get ready for 2022. I do not know what is going to happen, but I will tell you this. People have lost their dang minds. People have lost their mind. This isn't political. John, you're getting political again. I'm not getting political. There is a mass psychosis happening. You have to have lost your mind to read the same reports that I've read and the same reports that all of you have read about how little of danger there is for these kids going to school to die from COVID. You have to have lost your minds to say, I don't care if I lose my job. I don't care if I break the law. I'm going to usurp the authority of the parent, and I'm going to give that kid the vaccine, whether they do or not. If I have to go to jail, it's worth it because I am saving a life. You have to have some sort of psychosis. A mass panic of fear is happening in this country. No. Rewind. I take it back. A mass psychosis of fear, panic is happening, not in this country, in the world. The entire world have literally lost their minds. I believe personally, you may disagree, I believe it is spiritual. I believe there is a spiritual thing happening, okay? I'll talk about this maybe more next year. I actually believe that God is allowing, or maybe some of the Reformed people out there might say causing, people to go crazy. I'm talking Nebuchadnezzar style crazy. I'm talking about Nebuchadnezzar out in the field, eating grass like he's one of the animals, barking at the moon with his nails getting all long. I'm talking about full on lost your minds. I actually think that is what's happening. This kid, he's going to kill himself and kill everybody with his bomb backpack if he doesn't get this vaccine. I'm not telling you not to get the vaccine. I'm not telling you not to get the vaccine for your kid. I'm just saying, if you've read the same stuff that I've read, you know that as a teacher, it's not worth you losing your job or going to jail or whatever in order to give that kid that vaccine. It is not, he is not wearing dynamite vest. All right. He is not walking around with C4 strapped to him. That is not what's going on. We all know that. I don't know where we're going in 2022. I want to encourage you in this. It may get worse. I told you. The reason I'm saying this is because I told you last year. Remember last year, as the year was turning in Cooper stuff, I said, I just want to tell you this. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Remember me telling you that. It's a new year. I don't know where we're at. I don't know if it's going to get worse or if all of a sudden people are going to wake up and realize how insane this is. How absolutely insane it is that we are pushing mandates all over the whole world, by the way, at a time when countries are getting I think America's like 70% vaccinated now. Are we close to 70% vaccinated? I can't remember. Some of these countries in Europe are 80, 90% vaccinated. Some of them have, like, in terms of adults, like 98% vaccination rates for people over like 15 or 16. At a time when a lot of these countries basically, for all intents and purposes, should have, quote, herd immunity, which is a whole other discussion, because they have those populations vaccinated, but the rates of COVID are still going up. It is absolute insanity to say, well, the answer then has to be mandated vaccines. You're not allowed to come out of your house. I'm not telling you not to get a vaccine. I'm not even an anti-vaxxer, except that the dictionary changed the name of anti-vaxxer. And now part of what anti-vax means is that if you don't support mandates, you're an anti-vaxxer. So I guess I am an anti-vaxxer. I'm not against vaccines. I am not against this vaccine. I'm just against the mandate. But the question just remains, when you have 70, 80, 90, 96% vaccinated people and your rates of COVID are still going up, why are people asking that question? Are people going to wake up to this finally? I really just don't know. I honestly don't know. Last year, I felt like certain it was going to get worse before it gets better. I don't think we're out of it yet. I think we're still going to watch a little bit of this getting worse, to be honest with you. But I like to think that we're at least on the backside. My encouragement to you is this. Christian, listen to me. Do not fear. There is nothing for us to fear. And I'm talking about nothing for us to fear, whether we're talking about the disease itself. There's no reason for us to fear the disease itself. Doesn't mean you won't get it. Doesn't mean you might not go to the hospital. Doesn't mean you might not know somebody that might die from it. Either way, you do not have to live in fear. Christ has set you free from that. If part of it is living in fear of losing your job, I feel you. It is scary. My own business, I am losing access to the market because of the things that I am saying. That's okay. I am not afraid because my trust is not in the market. My trust is not in my job. My trust is in Christ alone. And I know that He will guide me. Lastly, do not fear because, this is about to get good. As I said earlier, even if we don't have free access to the marketplace to have our ideas or our business or whatever, even if it's not equitable right now, we still live in a country where we can promote the laws of God, the design of God versus the secular humanist. And we are going to win 100% of the time. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, not a single area of life where the humanists are going to be able to beat us or outperform us. Their ideas are just not as good as God's ideas. And that's just what it is. So there is a reason to be encouraged, even though, things might they might even get weirder. But there's a reason to be encouraged because why? I believe they are going crazy. I believe they are losing their minds. I believe they are spiraling downwards into madness. And at some point, it's going to become clear that their ways are actually leading to really bad outcomes, while our ways are going to be leading to positive outcomes. I just think that has to be the way that it is because we are seeing the world as it is through truth, Jesus being the foundation, almost like Jesus and His Word being the glasses that we look through. Everything we see through the truth of Christ, so we see the world as it actually is. Therefore, we are applying God's Word to this natural world in the way it should be applied. And so then we are going to succeed. Whereas the humanists are not seeing the world the way it truly is. They are seeing a distorted universe that they think that they control by applying all these levers and all these other forms of power. And it is spiraling down into absolute chaos and absolute madness to where the things they say just don't make any sense. I mean, you may have noticed that even with your kids, if you're like me, your teenage kids make more sense than grown adults that are they become so illogical. They become so, I don't know the word for it. They literally do not make sense when you have a conversation with them. And you can debate, you can argue about stuff, and they're completely inconsistent in everything that they say. And in the end, where are you left? I mean, we're in a time when our culture elites, had, like, for instance, remember when I started this saying, I'm almost done here, but remember when I started the podcast and I was saying, as a celebrity, or somebody, if you're on the leftist side, on the woke side, you can tweet anything you want to, and nothing bad will ever happen to you in terms of our society. You may not make any sense. A good example of this is all of the people that tweeted support for Jussie Smollett on the hate crime hoax. all the people that said, America's terrible, this is the country we live in, where you can't be a person of color, or you can't be gay, or you're going to be beat up, or you have to, if you don't love Trump, you're going to get killed. There's so many celebrities that jumped on this bandwagon. They're never going to be canceled from Twitter. Big Tech's never going to say, you know what, you've been spreading misinformation, so we're actually going to hurt algorithms so that your message can't get. They're not going to do that. Why? They're not going to cancel people that have their own worldview. They do want to cancel some worldviews, but theirs isn't it. So whether they're saying things that are true or untrue in terms of absolute truth doesn't really matter. You see what I'm saying? They are saying things that are versions of truth. Right, like I read in my book. They're the ones saying, look, whether Kavanaugh actually did that thing to Blasey Ford, basically whether he did it or not, it doesn't matter. It's true because it feels true. So whether Justice Smollett was actually attacked by these white men, it doesn't matter. It is true because it feels true. You see? They're going to keep going down that spiral. Eventually, it is not going to work out for them because they are ignoring God's world as it actually is. So they cannot end up in a more successful place. They cannot end up in a good place. It eventually is going to lead to a very bad outcome. Our outcomes are going to continue to get better because we are adhering to the world as it is, and we are adhering to the scriptures. I cannot promise you that on the way to that good outcome that we're not going to suffer. I can't promise you that. I don't know that. I'm not sure how bad things are going to get, but know this, at some point, it will get turned around because it is the truth of sowing and reaping, and God's word is always true. So a truth of sowing and reaping is going to be there sowing madness as we speak. They are going to reap madness. We just don't know when. So you, Christian, do not fear. Get ready for 2022. Stand up for what you believe in. And as a final request, I want to request you guys listen to my new album. It's going to get you pumped up. You want to talk about messages of standing up for what you believe, standing against cancel culture, standing against this downward spiral of madness, even though it might cost you something. That is all over this album, and I sure hope that you love it. So go check it out, skillet.com. We have 3 singles that are out now, Surviving the Game, Standing in the Storm, and our song Refuge just came out, which is a very worshipful song. I hope that it will inspire you to live for God more and more and more. I hope you have the best Christmas ever. Do not be afraid. Your God is with you. That is great news for all of us going into 22. Merry Christmas and peace.
Read the Bible.
Kill myself!